Hiroshi Abe says, Morena, guys, Morena.
Morena.
He says, how are you? Absolutely wonderful.
Good.
Just good.
Just good.
Wow, absolutely wonderful. He says, during the hikings, can you set your tent anywhere and sleep there? If not, how can I know where in the nature I can set my tent? Thank you. That's for you, Laura.
Yes. Okay, so you can't just set your tent absolutely anywhere, but along the hiking trails that are managed by the Department of Conservation only, so you recognize them pretty easily by their green and yellow signs at the start of the trails saying how long the trails are going to be and all that sort of stuff. You are actually allowed to pitch tents along the trails of Department of Conservation trails, except for Great Walk trails. There's the 10 Great Walks of New Zealand, like the Milford Track, the Reuben Track, etc., etc. On these ones, you have to use their specially provided campsites or their Department of Conservation huts. But yeah, otherwise on other types of trails, you are allowed to do it along the trails as long as it is on Department of Conservation land. And we do have more information on that and to answer that question on nzpocketguide.com. The article you will need to look for is Guide to Backpacking in New Zealand or Multi-Day Backpacking in New Zealand, because this is a question that we do often receive and we can give you more information on nzpocketguide.com. So go have a look at that.
And one of the best places to actually pitch your tent when doing multi-day hikes in New Zealand in the Department of Conservation is actually next to the huts. If you see a Department of Conservation huts, they usually have a few facilities here and there, and also they have cleared a little bit more land.
Yes.
So it's usually easier, because you will find that a lot of the trails when hiking around New Zealand, you will find that they're quite narrow and you literally are within the bush straight away. So it's very rare to have literally
a nice clearing.
Exactly.
To camp,
literally even just clearing for a tent, and it's not a joke. It's really not big, a tent, right? And you sometimes for hours and hours that you walk do not see a single clearing that would be suitable for just one tent. So usually the place where the huts are is also
it's the best
a good place.
Yeah.
Also, they do a lot of land survey and research on where they place the huts. So this usually are the huts of the Department of Conservation are usually placed in areas where you have lower risk of flood, lower risk of landslip and all those kind of things. Just in case, if the weather is bad, and in New Zealand weather changes quite often, so it's one thing to keep in mind as well. So maybe planning along the lines of where the huts are is usually a bit like the right idea.
Yeah.
But the advantage of traveling with your own tent also is that you are not necessarily restricted to those huts. So if there is a hike, which is, they say it's about 4 days, and you feel like you can do it in 2 days, which very often is the case. If you hike a little bit more, you are able to stop wherever you want. So you kind of have to do a little bit of a trade-off on what you can do with that.
Yeah, and you will also find that there are also dedicated campsites along a lot of multi-day hiking trails as well, not just on the Great Walk trails, but on other multi-day hiking trails as well. So they're usually also a better place to pitch your tent, because they also will have extra facilities there, like toilets and water source and that sort of thing. So
not all the time.
Not all the time. Yeah, they do have, they have different facilities in different places, but it tends to be, if you are looking at a certain hike, it's always worth having a look at if they have any huts or campsites already on the hike, and then that's like a good place to know when to stop and pitch your tent.
So I know that Hero already arrived in New Zealand, but for someone which is not in New Zealand right now and want to bring their own tents and everything, is there a thing and tenting gears and all that? Is there a thing that they need to keep in mind before they take their tent in the dog trails?
In the dog trails, not into the country.
Yeah, into the country and then take them in the dog trails.
So if you are bringing your own hiking gear, including camping gear, into New Zealand, you do need to make sure that all your hiking gear and camping gear is clean. You don't want any soil on it, because it will be picked up by biosecurity at the airport. And yeah, basically you will have to either clean it at the airport or they will send it off for cleaning, which can be quite expensive. So make sure if you are bringing your own gear into New Zealand, it's all nice and clean and not damp either. Don't just clean it and then put it in your suitcase. Make sure it's all dried out as well, because that's also a thing. Like they often have issues with damp gear. So that's the first thing. Was there something else that you were
the other
about?
thing I wanted to talk about as well is that obviously we just talked about, alongside the Department of Conservation walks, every other region, district and everything, if you're not doing a walk not on the department, also national park basically, not on the Department of Conservation area, there are different laws and different bylaws by all the different councils.
Yeah,
and
if you're on council land, it would be a different
so
story.
you cannot just drive along New Zealand and then just find a spot that you like alongside the road and pitch a tent and sleep there. This is absolutely not acceptable. You can't do that in New Zealand. Just making that really clear.
Yeah.
We just were talking about in the Department of Conservation. If you want to know where you can tent, camp alongside the roads and the areas of New Zealand, we do have some content on that on NZ Pocket Guide as well. So there is a whole section about camping, so check out that section. There is really different rules and we have all the videos about that. This is definitely not what we're talking about, but I just don't want it to be taken out of
yeah. So freedom camping is kind of like a different thing on the side, but we're just talking about hiking, like camping along the hiking trails.
All right. If you guys want some more information, nzpocketguide.com, largest travel guide to New Zealand, free of charge to use. So check it out. And if you find this video useful, like and subscribe, because YouTube tells me to tell you to do that. That is a good reason.
You gotta please the algorithm gods.
Here you go. All right, let's go back to the live chat.